Welcome to the Criminal Imagination. This series, Crime and Civilization, begins with a simple question. What if the true purpose of law is not justice but control? Across centuries, crime fiction has recorded the political fears of its age, from cursed kings and cunning thieves to corrupt judges and silent witnesses. Each episode investigates how power operates through a narrative, what it hides, who it condemns, and what happens when the system turns inward and begins to devour itself. In The Moonstone, Wilkie Collins said, I want to trace the influence of character on events. But what if the character under investigation is not a person but an empire? Today, we turn to Wilkie Collins's The Moonstone, published in 1868 and often hailed as the first full-length detective novel in English literature. But beyond the locked doors and opium dreams, The Moonstone contains a hidden dossier, one that exposes the forensic methods of the British Empire, investigating its own colonial guilt under the mask of rationalism, order, and the rule of law. This is not just a mystery novel, it is a legal autopsy of imperial theft, of a diamond stolen from India and made invisible behind the veil of English domesticity. It is about how the empire polices itself while pretending to deliver justice. So let us begin. Let us begin with the object at the center of the narrative, the moonstone itself, an enormous yellow diamond stolen from a sacred Indian temple during a violent British campaign. On the surface, the novel is about the theft of the diamond from the English household. But this is a sleight of hand. The diamond was already stolen from India. The plot's inciting incident is not an original crime but a reverberation of imperial violence. Colonel Horncastle, an imperial officer, loots the gem during the siege of Seringapatam, a real historical event in 1799 in which the British East India Company defeated Tipu Sultan. Horncastle's theft is an act of desecration, not mere plunder. The diamond is not just a precious stone, it is a religious artifact guarded by three Brahmins for generations. In taking it, he becomes cursed, a metaphor for the moral infection of the empire. This theft is then transferred into English domesticity, gifted to Rachel Verinder, a young woman unaware of its colonial bloodline. What follows is the central crime of the novel. The diamond disappears from her room during her birthday celebration. But this is a red herring. The true mystery is not who stole the diamond from Rachel. It is who gave the British Empire the right to possess it in the first place. The crime has already occurred. Everything that follows is a cover-up. The novel then repositions imperial looting as domestic mystery, shifting the lens from global violence to parlor drama. It is a cultural laundering of colonialism, and it works, almost. Enter Sergeant Cuff, the detective figure modeled on real-life Scotland Yard men. Rational, empirical, calm, he observes footprints, suspects motives, follows evidence. He is the new face of 19th century epistemology, forensic, materialist, positivist. But what is his true role in the imperial state? He represents a pivotal shift from monarchical punishment to forensic surveillance, an internalized systematic form of control. Michael Foucault called this the shift from the scaffold to the file. Sergeant Cuff's investigation is a metaphor for the state examining itself. reassuring its public that justice is neutral and attainable. But Cuff does not and cannot investigate the real crime, the original theft of the Moonstone from India. That lies outside his jurisdiction and outside the novel's permissible consciousness. Thus, while the detective appears as a harbinger of justice, his function is ideological. He converts a colonial artifact into a domestic problem, depoliticizing it. He polices order, not truth. He also embodies a key imperial fantasy that knowledge equals control. Every clue, every observation, every footstep analyzed. This is not simply method, it is a symbolic mastery over disorder, a desire to classify, stabilize, and predict. The forensic gaze becomes a proxy for the empire's eye, always watching, always rationalizing, always justifying. The structure of the Moonstone is epistolary, polyphonic, fragmented, told through multiple first-person accounts. Betteridge the steward, Miss Clack the religious fanatic, Franklin Blake the gentleman suspect, Ezra Jennings the outcast. At first this appears democratic, a chorus of voices. But this is multiplicity in deception. All narrators are British, all voices are confined to the English setting. There is no Indian voice allowed to speak. The three Indian Brahmins who stalk the diamond are never given interiority. They remain silent figures of the dread, holy yet ominous, righteous yet unknowable. This silence is deliberate. The polyphonic structure mimics a legal inquiry or a bureaucratic file. Each statement is filed, signed, and submitted. But the absence of the colonized voice marks the limit of British epistemology. The empire investigates itself, but only with its own tools and only through its own witnesses. It cannot hear what it refuses to recognize. This is not just a narrative technique, it's a political allegory. The Moonstone becomes a file in the archive of empire, self-authored, self-ratified, and self-justifying. Among the narrators, one figure stands apart, Ezra Jennings, a mixed-race man suffering from illness and addiction. He is marginalized, distrusted, and dismissed by the other characters. But he is the one who solves the mystery. Jennings represents everything the empire cannot reconcile: racial ambiguity, scientific unorthodoxy, emotional depth. His presence destabilizes the hierarchy of rationality. He does not use pure logic, he combines observation with empathy, science with intuition. It is he who proposes the controversial opium reenactment, which ultimately exonerates Franklin Blake. But Jennings' insight is not celebrated, it is tolerated. He remains an outsider. His revelations are absorbed, but he is not. This reflects the broader colonial pattern. The empire extracts knowledge from its margins but refuses to acknowledge their humanity. Colonial subjects and racialized others can provide utility but not legitimacy. They are instruments, not citizens. Jennings is a mirror of the colonized intellectual, instrumentalized, brilliant, but excluded from authorship. What is the role of law in the Moonstone? On the surface, the novel champions justice. The innocent are cleared, the diamond is found, the rightful owners recover it, and the English order is restored. But this is a fiction within a fiction. The novel never questions the legality of the British presence in India. The violence of colonialism is treated as history, not crime. Only the theft within England is treated as actionable. This is a classic maneuver of the empire: criminalize disruption, not possession. In legal theory, this is the distinction between de facto and de jure. The British Empire acted as if it owned the world. The Moonstone asks us to accept that premise. The return of the diamond to India at the end is treated as symbolic atonement, but it's too little too late. The Brahmins must remain anonymous, mystical, and vanish. The imperial machinery is left intact. Moreover, the novel constructs guilt as personal and psychological. Franklin's accidental theft under opium, not systematic. Thus, colonial violence is displaced into individual pathology. What could have been a political critique becomes a moral mystery. The Moonstone also dramatizes the rise of new institutions in the Victorian era, especially the media. The disappearance of the diamond attracts public attention. Newspapers speculate, print rumors, and influence reputation. This reflects a key transition from private reputation to public visibility. The press becomes a parallel judiciary, forming opinions and shaping justice. The police too are undergoing transformation. Sergeant Cuff is a private agent, but his methods reflect the emerging structure of British policing: data, order, protocol. He is not interested in moral judgment, only procedural logic. And yet, both the press and the police function within imperial ideology. They can chase down a missing object, but cannot question the ethics of its possession. The institutions of modernity, surveillance, journalism, investigation, form a triangulated system of control, dressed up as transparency. The empire no longer needs brute force, it needs files, reports, and public perception. This is how the state polices its own conscience. At the novel's end, the Moonstone is returned to its temple in India by the surviving Brahmins. English order is restored, Franklin and Rachel marry, the estate breathes again. But this ending is too neat and too forgiving. The return of the diamond is not an act of justice, but of narrative closure. The Brahmins disappear. There is no reckoning, no trial, no reparations. The empire continues unchanged. This quiet erasure reveals the deeper function of crime fiction in the 19th century: to investigate local disruptions while masking global crimes, to pose the question who stole the diamond rather than who stole the world. This is the forensic eye of the empire, an eye that sees every detail but it's blind to its own reflection. So, what is the Moonstone? It is not just a detective novel, it is a political palimpsest, a document layered with confession, concealment, surveillance, and symbolic restitution. It traces the genealogy of modern crime fiction as an instrument of empire: rational, procedural, secular, but built on the foundation of violence and theft. Each narrator in The Moonstone contributes to the illusion of justice while sidestepping its foundational crime. Every institution, police, media, law, play its part in maintaining a fragile moral order over a stolen artifact, and the reader is implicated. We are invited to solve the mystery, to admire the detective, to cheer for resolution, but perhaps we should be asking a different question: what other crimes lie buried beneath the neat endings of our stories? Let us know in the comments. Do you think crime fiction can ever truly investigate empire, or is it forever caught within its logic? Until next time, remember, behind every locked room lies an open wound, behind every clue a history, and behind every detective, a state learning how to watch. This has been Crime and Civilization, where the story isn't just about who did it, but who gets to say what justice means. See you in the next episode.